How's everybody doing today?
Okay.
All right, we're going to continue what we talked about last week, and actually it's a great segue that Reverend Jabu talked about the play Snatched, and I have not seen it, but the way you're describing it is very much in line with what we're talking about today.
Yes.
And what Brother Dixon brought up last week about the miseducation of our people. And thank you, sis. And how it has impacted us historically, present, and how it's going to continue to impact us if we don't have a major intervention, a racial intervention within ourselves. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, a new movie Walt Disney produced, Marvel Comics, Black Panther.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw it? What'd you think about it? I want to start a discussion about that. Now, it might be some spoiler alerts, but I guarantee you'll still enjoy it.
I went to sleep.
Why'd you go to sleep?
I was tired.
That's why I ain't taking my mama.
Yeah, you're right.
She sleep at every movie. I wait till it come on TV.
I don't sleep every movie, but I went to sleep on that one. I went to a 7 o'clock movie, and I started off here that day. So, for this class. So I've been moving all day long. So my body told me, shut it down. I don't care where.
Dr. Walker, what'd you think?
I thought it was, my wife and I thought it was awesome. I was tired during the first probably 30 minutes of the show. And I was kind of nodding a little bit, only because I was physically tired. And I am not, most of my memory, I am not adept at all to a lot of technology. I should be, but I'm just not. So I was a little slow. But after the movie started, probably about 30 minutes into it, man, it was something that the brother did, and it just jarred me. Stayed awake through the entire movie, and I loved it. I want to go see it again.
Michael Kugler is the director. Kugler, this is his third movie. Okay. Oh, yeah. Spock.
When I heard Black Panther, it wasn't what I expected.
You thought Huey P. Newton.
Revolutionary.
Right.
Okay.
So it was a nice surprise.
Okay.
So, I love seeing all the characters, all the people in there, and playing these really unusual roles, like the women.
Yeah.
And I love that here we had access to all the technology and energy and all of that. Myself and me. And I kind of felt like it maybe is going to be like a segue into what's going to continue to happen in the States, because at the end, of course, it ended like, okay, now we're going to move out of our own shell with all this powerful stuff we've got, and we're going to go and have some people. So I really like that.
Anybody else? You saw it?
You saw it?
Yeah, I saw it.
You're among friends.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. It had a lot of innuendos and hidden messages that you have to open your mind to look at.
Right.
You can't take it out. You can't take it out of context, and it's just a movie.
Right.
But you have to look at it for all the symbolisms that it brings. And it'll remind you of a whole lot of other movies, like some of the technology and some of the phrases and the information you get out of different other movies. But every movie offers somebody else. So without telling too much of the story, you have to open your mind when you walk in and just be able to just see what's in front of you and just take it all in, and you'll think about it later. Because it's so fast and so much going on that you can't really think. You have to just kind of so be open-minded.
Good. That's a good analysis. Now, what I was going to say is Michael Kugler. This is his third film, and it's phenomenal for a third film black director to get $100 million Disney film, Marvel Comics film. That's phenomenal. His first film was Fruitville Station. If you know, I'm just giving you context of the director, and he also wrote the movie. I'm giving you context about how he thinks. Fruitville Station was about the young man who was shot in Fruitville Station near Oakland in the subway, shot by the cops, and it chronicles his last day on Earth and all the things he's gone through, and humanizes this person that we, so often victimize and therefore put him in a category that he's not really human. And then, all the narratives that come out, they really humanize him. He wasn't, my daughter wouldn't be dating this dude, I'll just tell you that.
But he was trying to turn it around.
But he was, he didn't try fast enough for my daughters. But at the same time, he still was a human being that deserved not to die in the way that he did. Second film, he went from an independent film to a blockbuster. What was his second film? Creed. Rocky. Creed. And that was phenomenal, the storyline. There was some holes in that. He was getting his feet wet. And I don't think he wrote that film, but he directed it, and he, the perspective of this is an angry black man who lost his father. Turns out, he wants to box, and, it's a Rocky film. It's a classic Rocky film. Sylvester Stallone is in it, and, he went from that to $100 million, hold nothing back, budget, Black Panther. And I was completely caught off guard. Completely caught off guard. Black superhero, Marvel Comics, you expected one thing, but the risk that they took, and it was a lot of subtleties, but there was a lot of blatant, we got to help our people. All over the world, 2 billion black folk, and nobody messing with them. Here we are in Africa, richest continent in the world, and we ain't profiting off our land. So the villain in the movie, so quote unquote, I would have rolled with him. You know what I mean? Maybe not as radical, but it's Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, from when Malcolm X was the terrorist of the day, to how Martin Luther King was the terrorist of the day. Then they say, oh, wait a minute, he don't want to fight back? Let's go after that one. So it was kind of the piece versus this. It was a classic Booker T. Washington versus W.D.B. Du Bois. And so it's that struggle of we want to help our people, but how? And if I do it your way, a lot of us are still going to get killed. Or it's that classic, I got mine. And I'm sorry. If I let them other people in that look like us, they're going to destroy what we got. We got to protect what's ours. And that was sad. I'm going to give one scene away. And I won't give the whole movie away, but one scene away.
We're going to go see it anyhow.
Good. It's when they were rescuing those girls. There's a part in the beginning of the film, and she's, they try to put some comedy in there and say, don't freeze. But when he went down there and rescued the girls, they were in Nigeria. And, they rescued them, classic superhero style. Got the girls, go be, peace be among you, go live your life, don't tell nobody about this type of thing. But that made me emotional. It made me so emotional, I started crying on that scene. And, my wife like, what's going on? And I was like, the problem though, where are our superheroes? That's happening every day. And these little girls would have been carted off, and God knows what happened to them. And I'm thinking of my daughters, and I'm just like, there are no superheroes rescuing them. The movie is bringing, but there is no person coming from a spaceship in a mask and, these beautiful sisters with the spears, rescuing folks that don't exist for us. And I'm just like, what am I doing? The whole movie was a conviction on what can I do more? And I'm crazy, so I'm glad I have a wife that, is a little more sane. I was like, we moving tomorrow, we going to Africa. She was like, whoa. I need a plan. But, a lot of parts made me sad. The end, when the cousin, that made me cry too. At the end, he said a line that said, just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors. Because they knew that death was better than bondage. And that just, it got to me.
I sort of have a feeling too that since they were able to bring folks back, that maybe in the next sequel, they
Right.
should again.
I certainly hope so.
The other thing I would add, that was interesting. Dr. Ron Somerville's his assessment.
Right.
He just stated what you stated. He told his wife, let's move to Ghana.
Right.
Go there. We live better, less expensive, have better homes. Let's move. She was like, you go. I'm gonna stay in America.
Well, my wife is willing. She's not willing to go without a plan. And I'm no plan man. The first time I moved to Africa, I literally got up one day, researched a ticket, bought a one-way ticket, and didn't come back for 3 years. So I didn't have any kids. I didn't have a wife. I just had my youth. And I say that endearingly. But very good movie, and there needs to be entire course built around some of the themes that come out of that movie. But almost 100 years ago, there was a book written that could be called what we just witnessed on that screen. It's The Miseducation of the Negro, and how we have been systematically conditioned to think the way we think. Specifically, people that look like you and I, African Americans, Africans. We have been specifically, quote unquote, educated to believing some of the things that we believe. I say this all the time. Dr. Lasana, he brought this up the first week. He said, if you go overseas, I've been to almost 30 countries, so I've been all over Europe. Every time that I've gone to Europe, I say, hey, we're going to go to Italy. It's like, cool, that's tight. You're going to Rome, you're going to this. They name some cities, not just the ubiquitous Italy. They said, you're going to, I said, I'm going to Rome, Venice, Napoli, which is Naples. I'm going to Firenze, which is Florence. I'm going to all these places. It's like, cool, I've been to Paris. I'm going to Paris. Hey, you're going to the Eiffel Tower. You're going to the Louvre. You're going to Notre Dame. You're going to all these places. I say, yes. I'm going to Amsterdam. You're going to smoke some weed. No. There's a context to Holland, and Amsterdam. I'm going to Prague. There's context built there. Hey, I'm going to Ghana. Huh? I'm going to Africa. Huh? Why? What you gonna be doing there? What, you gonna be sleeping in a hut? Well, do they have clothes on? I mean, what you gonna be doing? I say, hey, I want to go. I got a trip together. We're going to Ghana. Why? What are we gonna be doing? Where are we gonna sleep? I mean, honest questions, but unfortunate, because the images that come from Paris, the American in Paris, the images that come out of Holland and Italy and the UK, Switzerland. I say I can go to Switzerland. I say I'll go to Greenland. Y'all be like, yo, I want to go. Those images that come from Africa are usually towards the primitive, right? Am I going to be eaten by a lion in Ghana? There's no lions in Ghana. We're going on a safari. Well, it's West Africa. You do more of that in Eastern and Southern Africa. And you got to just kind of take it in. That's what I want to do. We probably thought this way at one point. And exposure is the way, re-education is the way to expand your mind, to learn what's going on. Now, when I did go to Paris and Europe and things like that, that shocked the heck out of me. Because it ain't that advanced as they portray it. It ain't that as beautiful as they portray it. It's basically, if there's first world and there's third world, which are political statements that have been educated into us, then Europe is like a second world. It ain't all that. It ain't all that at all. I was like, this looked like the hood. It shocked me in many ways, as it did when I first went to Africa. And I say Africa, meaning the continent, not a specific one place. Because I've been to a lot of places in Africa, not every place, but I've been to a lot of places, mainly West Africa. I've been to East Africa. I've seen the tallest mountain.
Been to South Africa?
I've never been to South Africa. My wife was like, we've been to Ghana. If we're going to move, let's research South Africa. So, but that's on the list, and I was serious about that because it's just like, we got to do more. And direct action for me is the best action. So we got to re-educate ourselves that we are beautiful, that it ain't all good, but it certainly ain't all bad. Just like everywhere else. Going to New York, you would think of Times Square and maybe the Apollo. If you go to Apollo right now, you're gonna see more white folks than you're gonna see us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You go to the area 125th Street. I lived there. I witnessed the transformation. It was almost overnight. Literally, I would say September. Building fall. Well, let me use another month. August. August, a building falls down. They raise the building, and then by March of that next year, you got folks paying $1 million to get back in this building that was condemned, less than a year ago. And it happens overnight. And we call that gentrification, but all of us love gentrification in its purest form because we want to live in a neighborhood free from some of those ills that society has educated into us and conditioned us to live in, right? Because, when we say we want to preserve our neighborhood, no, we don't mean that. We don't mean that to the core of our heart. We don't mean all the infestation, the poverty, and all that. We don't want to preserve that. We want it to get better. And that's what gentrification is a French word that just means to make better. The problem is make better from whose standards, from whose perspective. That's the problem with gentrification, right? Because it's like, and whom, right. So I know we're in a church, I know I'm in a sanctuary, but I'll say some things controversial to the church that I do not like missionaries, because they have been miseducated in the form of white superiority and how they deal in their missions, right? They have a messianic complex where they go in and it's like, these little brown black people need saving, and I'm the one to save them, right? And I believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, but we usually take that upon ourselves as a personal mission to say that we need to gentrify this place. We need to make this place better. We need to missionalize these people because they have nothing. Without us, it is our burden. Even Rudyard Kipling, I alluded to last week, wrote a poem, The White Man's Burden. It's our burden to help these poor people that are so primitive. They don't know what to do.
We don't respect.
Here's the proof. They got all this material wealth and they can't even profit off of it. They can't even profit off their own land. They need us. Because we know how to, they don't even know how valuable this cobalt is. Right? And who knows the value of it until you have greed. Every cell phone that you got in your pocket right now, potentially a little African child is wasting his life away, basically slave labor, to produce these batteries that power these phones. Cobalt. Where do you find cobalt? In the most destabilized place on earth. Why is it so rich and so unstable? Right? And it's not like they're fighting over the resources, they're fighting over the little pennies that people give you. The invention of the gun has changed the history of the world, right? Because it made the lion less powerful than the mouse. Because the mouse had a gun, he could tell the better story. Right? It's changed our DNA. It's changed the way it's got these little people in Europe that couldn't even fix their diseases. And all these warriors, samurai warriors, they went in there, they couldn't defeat the samurai, except with, when Commodore Perry pulled up, he was like, I want to trade with y'all. And they was like, nah. Had the gun. They was like, we ain't never seen that before. What you want, white man? Open the forbiddens. Open up these gates and let's trade. And trade means we want to take what you got. The imperialistic mindset. It's prevalent. Okay? So we got to change that mentality, and we have a chance. This class is an opportunity to start those discussions. And I'm going to take you through the chapters, and we're going to discuss. This is an interactive class, okay? So if you just sit there and you want me to pour into you, you're mistaken. Everybody here is an instructor because you can, your perspective is very valuable. All right. So, miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson. What's notable about Carter G. Woodson? What's notable?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
What's notable about Carter G. Woodson? What is he right now at?
Black History Month.
Right.
I think of the traffic lights.
Well, that's Garrett T. Morgan.
Right.
That's okay. That's all right. We're here to reorient our mind. And Garrett T. Morgan, he not only did the traffic light, but he also did the gas mask. And deep sea divers, they can live underwater because of that black man. Carter G. Woodson, he was an intellectual. He was one that thought. He was one of the founders of sort of Africana consciousness, Africana studies. Because up until he really brought it out into the forefront, there was no reason to study the black man. Why would I study the black man? Right? It's like, let me make a whole thought about studying a pen. Right? Why? Why didn't know that? I click it and I use it. That's all it's used for. That's the only thing I need to know about it. How can I use it? Right? So up until this point, the early 20th century, all black people studied for was, how do I use it? I got one look like this. How do I use it? She has breasts. She can feed my kids. This one look like this. How can I use it? Yeah, you need to get out in the field. How can I use this one? He can talk. I need him to tell everybody else how great I am. Right? How do I use this one? That's the furthest we got to how do you study black folk. How do I use it? Right? He was thought, no. We've been useful since the beginning of time. We have a consciousness and a thought that's beautiful. And that's worthy of study, worthy of debate, worthy of variance, right? Before that, there was no variance in us. It was just black folk. Good for nothing or good for one thing, right? So, I don't know why it's off-centered. But we're going to try to make it through this. And I'll read it. Chapter 1 talks about the seat of trouble. And there's a clue into what the seat is. What's that? It's the school desk. That's where trouble begins for black people. That's where the miseducation begins. Now, let's talk about, when we talk about miseducation of the Negro, and we're no longer acceptable to call us Negroes, but the miseducation of African Americans. What do you think, just off that title of the book? Now, this book was written 1920s. What do you think about that?
It's basically they're being taught an education that's incorrect. They're taught about what they call facts, which are not facts. In fact, they're wrong with somebody else. So they've been whitewashed.
She used the word whitewashed. Anybody else?
I just reflect on that play
Mm-hmm.
and the children's response after the play. And they said we were not taught about our history, we were taught about our enslavement,
Right.
but we were not taught about our rebellion. So that's a miseducation. And they even had a line in there, yeah, I was a captive, but I never was enslaved.
Right.
I love that. I love that. So that's a part of the miseducation.
Correct. I like that. Because that takes a perspective. Remember, for me, perspective is our superpower. Yes, ma'am.
There's a couple of documentaries on right now. Blacks in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it's so eye-opening to find out that there's more blacks in Latin America than there are in the United States.
Yes.
And that when they brought them into places like Brazil, it was 10 times more than brought into Brazil than brought into the United States.
Correct.
And so I just walked through these various key months into Haiti, and then across to the Dominican Republic, and how they're at war with each other, sort of, not physically, but they don't like each other because one is
Light
they're
and
both
the other.
black. One is trying to be Euro, and the other is trying to be black, but they're right across the river from each other. I mean, it was so good. And then they walked in not only to the Dominican, then they just kind of went to various Latin American countries and gave you a glimpse of, the big revolution in Haiti. Now, this was the greatest one. These people actually took over.
Right.
They took their country back and ran the French was the French. They ran the French out of there. But of course, they keep resurging, so they always have to fight a war. And so finally, they got to the point where they're fighting this last war, which is between themselves, not because they're split into the Euro folks and the black folks. And then I think France is still taking money from them, making them pay for when they
That's
go
right.
saying that you owe us money
That's
because
right.
and if you don't pay us, then we will let you sell your goods. And so they're still kind of under a sort of slavery to these countries paying out everything they got.
Right. Bible talks about debt.
Wow.
You're a slave to the person that you owe, and so that is economic slavery is just as prevalent as physical bondage. And I'm glad you mentioned the Isle of Hispaniola, which is modern day Haiti, modern day Dominican Republic. What's special about the Isle of Hispaniola?
They're the first ones to whip them white folks when you're talking about freeing themselves from slavery.
Not when it was Hispaniola. The opposite happened.
I don't know.
One of the genocide happened. There was a people there called the Taino. What happened to them? Okay, there was a little bitty man. A little bitty man from Venice. Huh?
Napoleon.
Nope, not Napoleon. 1492. Columbus. That's where he landed. The Isle of Hispaniola, which is now Dominican Republic, which is now Haiti, right? He went there and gave him syphilis. Nasty man. He raped him, and then he wrote back and was like, these folks, they ain't gonna go freely. They ain't gonna just, do what we say. So he brought troops back, killed everybody. Just literally lined them up and killed them. The ones he didn't kill, they impregnated, to put it nicely. Gave syphilis, impregnated some. So the world knew about, places like that. Around there is another island called Cuba, what we think of as Cuba. Same thing happened there. So, but you're right. More Africans made it to the West Indies than they ever made it up north here to North America. The result of that is, when y'all think of the 1950s, this little redheaded girl, she was a comedian. What was her name? Lucille Ball. She was married to who? Right. And for years on television, this little Cuban guy named Ricky Ricardo made it into our minds that's what Cubans look like. And that's what I thought Cubans looked like. Right? I went down to Cuba, and they look like me. 85% of the population is African, and they call themselves African. Right? They're Afro-Cuban, and they are proud of it. They're proud of their heritage. They're proud of, and I went down there to study drumming, and I was like, all right, I'll learn some Latin jazz. Actually, I went down there, I wanted to see Cuba, but at the time, this was 2003, you had to have a license to go down there, and the only way you get is education or some type of thing. So I found a conference. They paid for me to go to the conference, and I got to Cuba. But it's, when you think of Cuba, you think of, white folks think of two things. They think of the mimosa, who was created by who? Ernest Hemingway. He lived the rest of his life down in Cuba. For the Keys and Cuba. That was his home. He has a home there where he used to write, and and they think of people that look like the lighter skinned people. And you're right. Colorism is prevalent all over the world. You go to France, you go to Italy, you go to, England, you go all over the place. Colorism is destroying us as well.
The lighter kids are always trying to pick themselves being superior to the dark.
Well, that's by design. That's what happened in Rwanda. So it happens all over the world. Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutu. The Tutsis were more lighter skinned. The Hutus were more darker skinned. Dutch came in, was like, they don't like you. Them light skinned folks. Anyone over there to the other ones? They don't like you. Dark skinned folks. Right? Put them at war. Like, what do you mean you don't like me? And they step back. That's what Carter G. Woodson is talking about. It is,
The miseducation.
but it's almost beautiful. As evil as it is, it's almost like if they can think of something that destructive that can be prevalent for centuries, just imagine what we can do in the opposite.
Mexico, people are black.
Oh, of course.
Right? And they don't get the
Right.
When they search their roots, they find that their ancestors were black folks.
When you open up a history book and you look at the history of dreadlocks, they say dreadlocks started where?
Jamaica.
India.
India.
They say the oldest people, India. And they look darker than me. They're black. Now there's this little thing called Pangea. It's a supercontinent. Pangea, from the word pan, two Latin words, pan and Gea, one meaning everything, one meaning earth. So Pangea, that's why if you can look on a map and you can kind of connect all the continents together like a puzzle. And that little horn of Africa, that's where India, they say, broke off. And all those people, they just walked over. So all those Africans just walked over. So you go to India now, some parts of, especially subcontinental India, you'll see a lot of black folk. You wouldn't tell until you open your mouth. Okay? I'm gonna move on. Woodson makes an argument for blacks must be educated about their own culture and significant accomplishments of people of African descent. Right? We had a Black History program in my school yesterday. I teach at a middle school. And I wanted to convince these folks that, we're having an American history program from people of African descent. And it's important for people to be taught by them. This is my fight with our administration all the time. And we're probably one of the most diverse schools, but I tell them just where you position black folks is important. Don't put us all in the disciplinary camp, because kids are going to be conditioned to think that, that authority figure that I get at home, that authority figure I get here, those are the people that are always against me. They always trying to get me down. They always picking on me. Why are you always picking on me? All I did was disrupt the class. Why are you always picking on me? Johnny gets medicine, I get suspension. He has, an intervention, and I have an intervention too. We call them the IEP. I have one too, but I constantly get suspended. There's laws against that, and I tell them we gotta be number one in compliance with the law. You can't keep suspending these kids. You gotta give them, and they just give up on us. Most African American schools are only taught European history. Many schools taught that Africans and those of African heritage are inferior to everybody else. Right? Do we believe that? Well, you ain't been on Facebook lately. As beautiful as that movie was, there's actually a group of black folks that were protesting the movie, even before it came out.
Because
What movie?
why not? Right? It's black. I got to protest.
Right, it's that.
One, they said something about Michael Jordan's girlfriend, before it even came out.
What's a
But
girlfriend?
She's a white woman.
Ah, a rich black man, miseducated in this society, multi-millionaire. You mean he has a white girlfriend? Mm. And he's not even. It's not even the other Michael Jordan that's in the NBA, who now has a white wife. Who now has a white wife.
Right.
Right? Gave up that sister.
I was listening to the news, and this because of this shooting that happened in Florida, there's a big gun debate going on, and Trump is pushing that the teachers should be armed. And one of the teachers there at Florida, she says, okay, we act like we don't want to talk about the white elephant that's in the room. She says, if you arm teachers, and most of the teachers there are white,
Yeah, scared of black men
that were scared of black men.
and fear for their lives.
And so you
I
heard it. You heard
No,
it.
but I thought it.
Yeah. Well,
I was like,
Lord,
that's my
I just
biggest
read the
fear.
script a couple of days ago. But she said what we're going to see is more black people in these schools shot because white people say they're afraid of them and they ain't done nothing but walked in there.
That's
Black
right.
man on 2 feet, scared white woman.
Exactly.
So we had to kill him. She says,
Yeah,
for that reason alone,
absolutely.
there should not be arming teachers in the school.
Yep.
And
agree.
you know, in America, you just
You always got to
can't.
go there.
Yeah, you can't. White people, in fact, they always want to say that it's not racial. If you don't understand race in America, everything else is going to confuse you.
Well, they've been miseducated too, so
They've been taught to be afraid of you.
they've been taught they're superior.
Yeah,
But inside, they know they ain't.
right.
That's
So
the
they're
that's the
crazy.
dichotomy. That's the they call it cognitive dissonance. You know, the reality doesn't match up with what you think, right? I'm superior. But I'm scared of him. You know, that's the problem. They know they know they're not superior. They just been taught and they think they are, right? Just like we know we're better, we've just been taught and think that we're not. It's a biblical concept. You reorient your mind. That's how you free yourself, right? Your mind, heart, spirit. They're connected. Okay. Chapter 2 in this book, The Miseducation of the Negro, talks about how the mark was missed, how we got off course, right? I'm referencing some movies, so if y'all ain't seen them, go see them. But that movie, the name escapes me, but where the women scientists, what was the name of that movie? Hidden Figures. So Hidden Figures, you know, these are literally rocket scientists, these women. And they were, you know, had to be so precise in their calculations because they were trying to launch stuff in the outer space and hit a target, right? There's a mark somewhere, you know, a long ways away. And if you off by 1 degree, it can make you off 100,000 miles. So they have to be so precise, right? What degree did we go wrong? That's what we're talking about. How did we miss the mark? How did we start off in Wakanda, metaphorically speaking, where we are powerful, rich, regal, know ourselves, proud of ourselves. We have a succession plan of how power is transferred, right? We care about our communities. We take care of our people. How do we get to where we are right now? Where the narrative is, not necessarily the reality in many cases, but the narrative is that we don't care about our families. We don't care about ourselves. It's so much black on black crime happening. They kill each other more than anybody else, right? They only make up 13.7% of this nation. How come 40% of them of our jails are populated by them? Right? Right? How dare my dog put a chain around his neck? Right. As if he done it himself. All right? How'd that dog get that collar? Why he always attached? Right? He didn't do that to himself, but we don't know that. How do we miss the mark? See, after slavery ended, the government established the Freedmen's Bureau. What's that?
That's where we're supposed to get our 40 acres and a mule with it.
That was just a proposition. It went nowhere. That's like proposing gun laws. It goes nowhere. Freedmen's Bureau, in a nutshell, it just how are we going to integrate these folks into our society? Okay, I got it. teach them something. All right. If they want to be free and they look at us as the oppressor and they were the oppressed, let's just teach them into society. That's it. That was his main goal. Was to teach us. Teach us something. Teach us to read and write. And when we start reading and writing, what are we going to read? We're going to read their books. Because if we couldn't read or write, there was no books written for us, by us, about us. You feel me? So we had to read their books. And we started reading their books, like, wow, guess what? If you read enough, you can go one of them institutions up there and get your education. You can get degree. And that degree is gonna get you access to all kinds of things in the world. You mean I can go up there and see WIFO and you mean I can be somebody? You can be a doctor. No, we can let you in our white schools. Remember what happened to Dr. Drew? What happened to him? He's the man that invented blood clotting and blood transfusion. How did he die?
He died needing
He got in a car accident, needed a blood transfusion, and they refused to admit him into the White Hospital. How about irony? Right? That's the saddest form of irony you ever want to have in your life. That's sad. That's make you cry. You mean I invented something, his work saved so many lives in the war because that he's credited with the foundations of the Red Cross that we have today. Black man. And he got in a car accident. The nearest hospital was a white one. They was like, nah, nigga, I don't care who you are. Excuse me. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you did. You ain't going this white. He needed a blood transfusion. Sad. So what they do is just tell us that we're something and still deny us the access. Chapter 3 talks about how we drifted away from the truth. Woodson asserts that whether it be in science, history, literature, whites have been taught that their contributions toward American society was far superior than anything a black man could do. Right? You might have invented that blood transfusion, nigga, but guess what? It ain't nothing till I tell you it's something. Right? It ain't worthy until I put my stamp on it. Right? Right, Dr. Sebi. Anybody know who that is? Dr. Sebi is a gentleman back, I want to say the 80s, the early 80s, published an article in the New York Times claiming that he had the cure for AIDS. Now, instantly our mind says, there is no cure for AIDS. There's no cure for AIDS because the white man said there's no cure for AIDS. That was his contention, right? He got sued. He got arrested for being, making false claims like that. And he was like, Judge, what do you mean there's no cure for AIDS? Because the scientific community says there's no cure for AIDS, right? He's like, well, it's no cure for AIDS because they haven't discovered it. What makes you think that I haven't discovered it, right? And his contention was, you change your diet, you can cure anything, including AIDS. So, criminal court, he's like, all right, Judge, pick 3 doctors. And I'm paraphrasing, because he's a little more humble than I'm presenting it. I'm presenting him as Wakandan. Wakanda. Right. Pick 3 doctors, 3 random patients. That establish that these people have AIDS. Let's come back in a little bit and see if I can cure them and see if these doctors can find evidence of AIDS. Right? He was facing years in jail. How many days did he do in jail? 0. Because the doctors couldn't find any trace of HIV. Right? Why don't we know about this? You know why? Because somebody has made billions of dollars researching how to cure it. And so it's just been a smear campaign against them. Now, legally, they couldn't prosecute them, but publicly, they could. Right? some quack talking about I can cure any disease, including hypertension, high blood pressure, everything that we know, because it's just the way the body processes. Dr. Sebi.
S-A-B-E.
S-E-B-I.
Okay.
S-E-B-I. Dr. Sebi. So what he did was just start publishing videos, just saying, change your diet. A disciple of his, so to speak, was Dick Gregory, saying the same thing. Water, most powerful thing you can ingest into your body. Alkaline water, how your pH, the acid is what causes every disease. And guess what's happening right now? Right now, Mucinex is coming out. People are making millions of dollars, and he's been saying it all along, and you had it for free. An overabundance of mucus in your system is what causes everything. High blood pressure, diabetes, meat. Not sugar causes diabetes. Meat, not sugar, causes diabetes. And once you got diabetes, the sugar can exasperate it, but the cause of it can be traced back to your diet. Okay, just as an example. We're not taught this because guess what? White folks, technology, science is better than any quack that ain't got no, he didn't even go to school. He didn't even graduate from the 8th grade, and you're gonna tell me he knows something about this? Right? All he did, he said when he was a kid, he just used to study the herbs and figure out how they worked in nature. How cauliflower, we shouldn't be putting that into our body. Because he said nature makes nothing that's white. Think about that. Think about that double entendre. That double entendre. Nature makes nothing white. Nothing.
So cauliflower is a mutant?
Cauliflower is a man-made plant.
I didn't know that.
Right. All the bananas that you've ever eaten, man-made. Bananas.
Yellow bananas.
That's bananas, ain't it?
Plantains and green bananas aren't.
There's no scientific difference between a plantain
My green banana.
and a banana. A plantain and a banana are the exact same thing. There's no difference.
And they're man-made.
They're man-made. How do you plant a banana?
That's a good question. Now, that's a good question.
How do you plant a banana?
That's a good question. Wow.
Right. How do you plant an orange?
See?
Bam! So any fruit that doesn't have a seed in it is man-made, genetically modified.
Look at that.
Right? You ever seen a seedless watermelon? Stay away from it. Seedless grapes? Stay away from it.
Look at that.
But bananas? Now there are bananas trees, right? But they're hard. A little mushy stuff that we eat, the seed of it is hard, right? The ones that grow in nature. You go to a deep forest or you'll find some real bananas. But the bananas we have are just generations and generations of the same bananas. So reorienting our mind helps us, right? Blew your mind. That's bananas. Right? So we've been taught that, because we trust science and those scientists will published article, right? Right? And it's okay, I guess, until they start publishing stuff like the guy that discovered DNA, they broke the code. Watson was his name? Dr. Watson. He came out and said, black folks is genetically, I'm a geneticist. I'm the one that cracked the code. I'm the one that figured out all the sequence of the DNA profile of, he said, black people are genetically inferior, basically. You're predisposed to all the negative stuff that we encounter. This is Dr. Watson. Write these names down. Don't trust anything I say.
We got it recorded.
Don't believe me. Don't believe me. So Dr. Watson, old guy, so he's the foremost, authority on the subject. And he published something saying that black people are inferior genetically. So that's how we drifted away. They convinced us of this. And we're all the victim of it. Chapter 4 talks about, teaching in whites a race of hate of the Negro and the Negroes' contempt for themselves. In other words, because they hated us, they wanted us to hate ourselves. Right? It's like I used to didn't like tomatoes. I don't know why, just used to did. Now, my wife put tomato on everything because we don't even need anymore. I used to not like tomatoes, and whenever somebody's eating tomato, I'm like, "Ugh, you eating that tomato?" You see how that's there? I want them not to like it, right? Like, nah, this tomato good, like, not for me. That happens on that level, but also happens on, why you wearing that? Why your hair like that? Get you a perm, right? Why you change your name? You African now? It's a fake African name.
Amen.
Why you doing like that? Why your hair ain't natural? Right? They want you to hate yourself because, number one, I think they hate themselves. It's hard, as a believer in God, that anybody can commit some of the atrocities that they've committed without some type of conscience, right? I cannot buy into the fact that they are inferior to us, because that would prove their argument that we're different. I think we're the same, but I just don't, and if we're the same, then there's a conscience. There's a spirit that's there, that God has made, that still can be tapped into, that still can be beautiful. And I think it's that cognitive dissonance again. I'm superior here in my head, but I feel so inferior in my soul. And that's evidenced by simple things like this. Anything black people try to rise up and create, they want to destroy. Now, we truly inferior, we fell on his own. We couldn't rise to that level, right? We couldn't organize. You don't expect all the dogs in the neighborhood to get together and start attacking folk. You just don't, right? But if they do, you're going to want to shoot them down, because you'd be like, that's unusual behavior for animals to be acting this way. And it's unusual for our sort of inhumane selves to be organizing and rise up and demand our freedom. They want to shoot it down. Like, I don't need you, Walmart. I'm going to build me a grocery store right here for my people. I'm going to make my own products. Why do they want to destroy that? Because deep down, they know that they, in their soul, that's where the inferiority is. That's where the I'm not worthy comes in. Okay? Any questions so far? Comments? Thoughts? Let's move on to chat. Yes, sir.
A good indication of their dislike for themselves is these school shootings.
School shootings, yes.
White males. Ain't nobody else done that.
Right.
White males. And interesting, going to the educational and take people out. We was walking from the play. That play was a good play, I'm telling you. And it was a little white girl walking with her mother. And she tells my wife and I, she says, I feel like the school I went to failed me. Because I didn't learn, they didn't teach me about this. I told her they not only failed you, they failed everybody else. And they're still failing because we don't know about our history. It causes a entanglement to where it's that we conflict instead of get along. All because of their self-hatred. They got to show themselves falsely superior
Falsely.
and us falsely inferior so that they can handle that dissonance of what they think and what is the reality.
But you're right, it catches up to you. And one evidence is these school shootings. One evidence is all these wars that they have to wage. All this sort of dominance that they have to demand instead of just command, right? Black man walk in a room, he can command an energy, right? He don't have to demand it, right? And conversely, they have to always announce themselves. It's that spiritual inferiority that they have, which can be cured. So it's not something that's certainly innate. You know, we believe in God. He's a redemptive God. And all that can be, but it has to be a willful. You know, you gotta come.
You gotta want it.
You gotta want it. So, education on the outside control. Woodson was frustrated by the lack of progress of most African American education. That's to say the least. Most African Americans were being taught by whites, of which did not truly understand nor have their best interests at hand. You feel me? I don't care about you. I don't care what you learn. And I see that every single day in the school I work at. Every single day. And it's subconscious in many ways. Right.
You think so?
Yeah, that is one thing. I do think there's a lot of this subconscious stuff going on. It doesn't make it any less insidious.
Right.
But, a lot of the affronts are probably not, okay, let me be intentional about doing this, but it's just, that's my programming.
Right.
And that gets even hard. That gets, in some ways, can be even harder, because if you're not even realizing that you're trying to do this, and you're just doing it. And I think a lot of the messages that our kids get, they're very simple. I've noticed that, when my daughter was growing up, and, she had great friends. They got along well. They never really said a lot of negative things to her. But there were moments where she's like, why is my hair not like so-and-so? Why isn't I, and you really had to say, I got to be intentional. I was very intentional about letting her understand that it was different, but it wasn't less than. And I remember, this is just funny, I wouldn't let her buy a lot of clothing that had white images on it, this and that. We were at Target one day and she wanted this thing, and I was like, no, I'm not getting that, She's like, all loud in the store, why do you hate white people?
Yeah.
And I was like, and so we had to have some of those
Let me explain this to you.
conversations, and these were people who were very, she was around people who treated her well and liked her. I mean, I'll give you one other example. We were in a restaurant, and this was, to me, I thought, an opportunity that I missed. And we were having, she was like 4 or 5 or whatever, and this woman was, the waitress loved her. She was like, you're just so cute, you're just so sweet. She was sweet, sweet, sweet to her the whole time. And then she said, do you go to school? And, she said, yeah. I said, where, Head Start? And we were just like, no, she goes to a daycare, local daycare, blah, 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 blah. And then she walked away, and I said to my husband, see, this is why black people go off. And then but this woman, but that to me was my missed opportunity, because she did not mean to be insulting. It's her programming. It's a young black child. She must be in Head Start, which there's nothing wrong with Head Start, but your assumption was that. And so that was an opportunity for me to stop her and say, do you realize you just were very insulting there, and why? And that to me is an example of people who, my intention wasn't to hurt this little girl, but my programming is that.
See, I think we give them too much credit.
No, I don't. I
really
don't.
do.
I don't think that was her intention.
And that's not to,
and I'm a Pollyanna, I will admit.
That's not to contest your position, but I graduated from Ben Davis in 1967. Out of a class of 3,000 people, maybe, no, not that many, that's the whole school, say 1,500. There were 9 blacks that graduated. And that was the largest number of blacks that had graduated from that school up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So every time that it was hard to see a black. In fact, when I saw a black person, I knew him. Because there were so few of us, you know. And some of the white folks who would come up and cough on you. Hey, man. And you know better than that.
Well, I'm not. That does sound like an instance where that might have been intentional.
I'm just saying, but they thought that they could do that just because we were black people. Come in the cafeteria, and well, everybody do that. But I mean, but take their food and throw it on the system. I mean, we tore the school up. They know better than that. You know, so my experience is they play with that. Oh, I didn't know that hurt you. Well, it hurts you. If I were to do it to you, it hurts you. You don't do it to the people that look like you. And if you say that you don't know it hurts me, then what you're actually saying is, well, you're less than human. You know, you don't know. You don't feel pain, which came out in the movie that play yesterday. And y'all need to go see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's both. I think there are people who are intentional, and then I think there are people who are oblivious.
Well, now I could go that far with you. You know, I can go that far. But likewise, I think we want to accept that they don't know no better. In fact, Martin Luther King, that was what they said. The white folks, they just don't know any better. And so what we got to do is teach them better. And if we teach them better, then they will act better. And it got so, and C.T. Vivian makes this statement in his book, King as Radical, I think is his book.
The Radical King.
Yeah. He says that was one of the biggest mistakes that they made when they was debriefing. He said the white folks knew what they were doing. And Malcolm even said, he said, yeah, as long as they've been doing it, they know what they've been doing. So I think we do ourselves a disservice to say that they don't know how to interact humanely with people. They know what they're doing. They knew what they were doing in the court. They knew what they were doing.
We have to look at what he said, like people are miseducated too. And they come out of a society that has really, set them with that mindset. And I think about a group of teachers that I used to have when I was a principal in elementary school, that I actually had the teachers. They had to go through a training. But really, and they did willingly. They didn't have to. But I said, you work with these black kids, these students like 50. I said, you working with the black kids are always in detention, they're always in trouble. Something wrong with that picture. So we had to look at it and see what they were doing. I'm like, how are you doing this? When you're looking at these kids, you got to understand that everyone is just as equal as the other. That each one, though they may be acting differently, they're still, just a personal kid. They're just a child that you're dealing with. And so when you're looking at, Johnny, he's stuck over here, but he's blonde, and so it's easy for him to get away with it. Where here's Jack over here, he's black. And Jack said out, Johnny's already done it. It's like you see it two different people. So we have to help them to see how they're, that they're seeing these children differently.
I agree with that.
But there's
like the willingness to say, well, and we've had these conversations. Well, that's probably just as the C is probably she's just doing her best, and then you wouldn't look at your child or a white child and say a C is just doing her best, But there is this thought that that's the best they can do, I'm like, no, you need to push them just as hard as you push your own child.
There was
Brother Khalil, welcome.
hey, how you doing, brother? Slack, how are you?
All right.
Good. There was a preacher who went down. I think he was in Virginia, somewhere South Virginia, and they were in some backwoods, and a little white kid came up to him and said, hey mister, do you look like that all over? And he said, as far as I know, as far as the mirror can reach and everything I can see, yeah, I'm chocolate all over. And the white kid, he said the white kid was astonished. He had never seen a black man before. This is recent too. This is just like 5 years ago.
Wow.
And he said this white kid had never had an up close personal encounter with a black person before. And then you got to think this is what the parents are, teaching their kids, how they're training their kids. Now, parenting has had its antithetical forms over history, right? And when you look at it, you look at the Japanese house, they call it a clan. Everybody lived together in this clan. And then you look at some of your other cultural structures for parenting and things of that nature. So as far as education is concerned, I think to some extent, cultures have something to contribute in terms of complementing who we are. Because it's like there are very few Aboriginals anymore, and so we're not Aboriginals, right? And we've indoctrinated quite a few things into our cultural existence, right? Or what we consider culture now, and then a lot of the stuff that some of the younger generation they consider culture, I don't consider culture at all. So we're here. From what I understand, is about us educating us, and I think that is very vital and very important. But even in us educating us, you can't steer completely away from portions of education that come from other cultural backgrounds. And I'm just saying, how do you were talking about these kids, all these black kids being in trouble. I deal with young men all the time, especially men. I target men more than I do girls because it's typically us that's under the bus. Just like civil rights and women's rights. Women's rights came up during the time where they were having civil rights to separate women from men. It was a further strategy to just completely dismember the family. Not to mention making it illegal for a black man to be in a house with a woman in which she was receiving, assistance from the government. You got countless systematic forms of racism. It goes on and on and on. But here and now, when I talk to young men about what they want to do with their lives, everything that they want to do is completely abstract to what the system is telling them to do. We're learning about everybody's history but our own. I say scrap history completely in as far as IPS is concerned. Take some of that budget money and put it towards construction trades. That's what I favor because I'm a contractor. And then a lot of young men, like even Keyshawn himself, wants to be a contractor. So there are a number of things. Vocational training. My last point. Christian Morehouse, historically black college. Years ago, that's all they taught was vocational training. They weren't interested in all of that excess stuff. They were trying to figure out how to get you some money. And that economic empowerment is how we better survive independently and not have to rely so much on a system that has repeatedly beaten us and broken us.
So we know what side of the W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T he's on. So that's been, that has been debated for over a century now. And, and there's both, right? There's room for both, in my opinion. As you guys were talking, I was thinking about the difference between a dog and a fish. How do you know a dog is hungry? Probably barking at you. It's biting, it's snarling, it's scratching. It's trying to get out.
Yeah, he bite you.
He bites you.
No.
He's
But the dogs I know, they don't like dark meat.
How do you know a fish is hungry?
Can't really tell. You can't hear them scream. They don't talk. You don't say nothing. Just sit there.
Yeah. And she just lying upside down in your tank.
Eventually, they'll be lying upside down in the tank, right? You know a fish is hungry because you ain't fed it. So how do we know it's intentional? How do we know it's subconscious? We don't. But we know what they know when we teach them.
Right.
We know what they know when we correct them.
And that's where I think that was my mistake
Right.
too.
We know what they know, intentional or not. Say, look, you know that was wrong. You know that's not, they expect us to be animals. They expect us to revolt and to act uncivilized so they can prove, what they thought. They're trying to prove their theory. And if that's the case, let's educate them. Let's let you know. Now you know that that's wrong. And you know that's not how you deal with me. You know that that's not what I'm going to accept. Treat people like fish, not like dogs. So with dogs, they start barking, you start barking back. Like, you better get up, sit down, sit,
Right.
sit. And that dog don't sit, you got him back. You're going to push on his back, right? You're going to chain it up.
Because I always thought,
I agree with
because
that.
I always thought the next person, that's why I feel
Right.
I really missed an opportunity. Because I would have pulled her aside and said, look, I don't know whether you knew this or not, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
The next person would just cuss her out. And then all of a sudden, it feeds into that angry black person issue. That's why I'm scared.
Can't
of
say
them. That's why
nothing.
pull out my gun.
I didn't know.
She done walked
Pat,
down.
Pat, we've all been there. We've all been there when something went down, it wasn't right.
Right.
And I said,
I should
I
have.
should have told her about
That was an opportunity.
We've all been there, and see the same experience that brother had with the white boy in the back alley there. When white folks came to the African continent, I'm sure, do you look like that all over?
Right, and the honest question from a kid.
And even though we cannot ignore the importance of building an economy, a fool that's got money and no consciousness will go home and kill everybody and say, shoot, I got paid. So we have to know who we are, man. Cause right now, they are talking about sending us to the African continent to fight our own people. And they'll pay you. So we have to know who we are, and it's not an either or. We got to make some money too.
Well, he brought, going back to the movie.
We got to know who
He
we are.
he did bring that. He said, I've killed people on this continent. I've killed people on just about every continent
What movie are you referring to?
with Black Panther.
Oh, really? I want to go see that today.
You need to go see it today. And then we can have, we should, there needs to be a facilitated conversation about unpacking that movie.
Right.
But, dude was like, I killed my own people just so I can get to this point where I can have the power to do something about my people.
That's strange.
It's a,
strange.
I mean, it's just like-
but it's the miseducation because that's what white folks do.
Well,
Don't they go to Europe and kill people? Don't they go to Kosovo? Don't they kill anybody just so they can get the power to do what they want to do and wield their power around the world?
see,
So he was,
I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam not knowing that I didn't have any business going.
right.
And when I understood listening to Muhammad Ali, I said, what am I doing over here? That's the reason why I'm saying now we can't go to Africa killing our people. And Lord knows I was 19 years old.
Damn.
Young, dumb,
How long ago was
trying to be a good American. We can't do that, man. That's the reason why I'm speaking up. I done made that mistake.
But I think
Don't
we
make that
need-
one.
I think we do need some form of, how do I say this? Because somebody once assumed I was trying to start a militia. Because I was,
Which is legal,
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The National Guard is a militia.
And what you
but it's legal to start a militia, by the
It
way.
is. And so I believe that we need some form of military program for our kids to police their own community. I mean, if we leave our communities to be policed by people who stereotype and are judgmental and define us like the dog, telling us to sit, chain us up, lock us up, and all that stuff, then what better way to police that society or that community by training this young man on certain simulation courses, tactical training, even counterterrorism. I mean, the list goes on and on about what he could have an open eye for if he had the proper training. And then not just with your own community, instead of going to kill your own people, like you're saying, going over to Africa. I'm here in a black community where we are killing each other.
You
and
need an instructor.
Right, huh?
You need an instructor.
Yeah. Well, no, just saying.
But we gotta be careful too, because eventually there will be that line where you will be confronted by somebody that's gonna look like you when you're trying to do well for your community.
Right.
And then there's another faction that says, we don't care about our community. In many ways, that's how the Bloods and the Crips were started.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to make their community better, and then it turns out these people trying to make a community better, and then it devolved into this because of the miseducation. And to your point, we're going through we're talking about the book Miseducation of the Negro, which is recommended reading and rereading for everybody. But he talks about that. He said, we don't take care of. Carl G. Woodson describes blacks as being educated to be consumers and not owners.
Right.
And then he talks about we fail to create successful businesses in our own communities.
Which is interesting to me, not to cut you off, because people say there is no business in the black community. I said, are you nuts? The gas station is owned by some Africans. The grocery store is owned by some Arabs or some Indians or whoever. I said, the restaurants, we ain't even cooking our own chicken. What do you mean ain't no business in the black community? There's plenty of business in the black community. It just ain't no black people owning the gas station, owning the grocery store, or owning a restaurant.
Or it's what we talked about before, the superiority complex.
Can I say something about
Yes.
the set aside right there?
You can, but let me just make everyone cognizant that it is.
Right.
We got about 5 more minutes.
Can I take 2?
Sure.
Indianapolis has a set-aside program. The set-aside program is any contracts let by the city, 15% is supposed to go to black people. Now they'll say minorities, but
a white woman is a minority.
I don't use that term.
You can
Yeah,
say
I
white woman.
don't use that term. I'm talking about us.
Yeah.
The city's budget is about $2 billion. 15% of $2 billion is $300 million. There is no black business, from the information that I have, that is qualified to get the set aside, because you got to go through a process to get the set aside. None have gone through, and there's black businesses, but none have gone through the process to be qualified to get the set aside. So every year, black businesses are leaving $300 million on the table. March 23rd, 6 o'clock at Flanner House, we're organizing to have a forum to where we start getting black businesses qualified for the set aside.
Well, if that money,
That's all I wanted to say.
go ahead. We got 5 minutes.
All right, we can talk. We can talk offline. And we're gonna kind of wrap it up right here. But I love these type of conversations. We start reorienting our mind and start educating ourselves in the proper fashion. And the biggest, even, and it just, the epiphany hit me today. Even calling ourselves minority is a white supremacist notion, because we're not minor in any way. As a matter of fact, people of color outnumber white folks exponentially on the planet, right? And the more we just keep calling ourselves minority, that does couple things. One thing it does is localizes us only to America.
Right.
Right? When we think of ourselves as people of color, that opens it up, because is an African American from America the same as an African American from Brazil? African American from Brazil. When we think of African American, we tend to think that's only America. That's only United States of America. But if we think about South America, there are African American. There's American Africans over there, right?
Central American African.
Central American Africans. There's all these American Africans, but we tend to localize ourselves. And we put those together in a group, we're not minorities, and by any stretch of the imagination, it's quite the opposite.
There's one point. There's this woman I listen to a lot on Sirius XM, Karen Hunter. She has a talk show, and she coined the phrase. I don't know if she coined it, but she uses it: global majority.
Global majority.
That's how she talks about it, and she sells T-shirts. You know, we're the global majority.
That's good,
And
right?
that's how she speaks of it, which I think is really.
That's good, right?
So, in the interest of time, and I'm sure these doors ain't gonna close, we can talk offline. But as far as the course goes, we're here for the next. We have 2 more sessions to go. I like that. It's usually a 12-week course, but the introduction we're doing right now, we truncated it to 6 weeks just to introduce and get the conversation flowing. But these are relevant informations and not just informational. We want it to be transformational. And the only way to transform it